this so that we have it available for future use. And it'll always be up on Facebook Live for streaming and also on Instagram. I'm really discovering some new things about the endocannabinoid system, so I want to share that with you guys. Again, I think this is stuff that's really never been presented before anywhere. Last week, we talked some about fats, and we really kind of dove deeper into the endocannabinoid system. And so I want to continue with that theme this week and just really give you all more information about potentially how we work and kind of what our model is here at New Pharma. Why is this important? Again, I think it's very important for us to understand how other animals function and then how we function in relation to other animals, how other animals feed natively their systems and how they achieve health, and how we do that, right? So those are very important things for us to understand as humans. If we don't understand these things, we'll continue to break like we are. We'll continue to have issues and be dysregulated in the way that we are. So let's dive into this a little bit more deeply. Again, I've got a presentation all set up here for you guys. And we'll kind of go down this presentation, but we'll also talk off of it, let's say. So it just won't be the presentation. Again, if anyone has questions or anything about any of the stuff that I present here, you can leave it in the thread. You can email me at chip@newpharma.com. If you want a copy of this presentation, email me. Very soon, we're going to start putting together all of our presentations because, believe it or not, there is kind of a flow here. We're trying to kind of go in a direction. So we'll be putting those all together in a book, and that book will leave, you know, at expos and things when we talk, and also we'll have that available if you guys would like a book with references to all these videos. So we're going to try to put this together in an easily understood manner, so that it's, you know, easy to understand, right? So let's just recap real quick. Again, anytime you hear me talk, you're going to hear me talk about my 3 points on the endocannabinoid system, and this will be no different. In our world right now, we subscribe to the endocannabinoid deficiency model. So we're all basically driving hoopties that we don't even know we're driving hoopties because we're all deficient in the endocannabinoid system. And we really don't understand quite yet how to provide sufficiency. But that's kind of where we're at right now. And again, in the future, we think we're going to be driving some really cool vehicles, right? So we're going to figure this out, and we're going to be able to tell you, we hope, how to improve your health and your lifespan and the health of your kids and the lifespan of your kids and the quality of life of people who are sick and dysregulated. So that's why this is so important, all right? So how do our bodies regulate? Again, high school science will tell you it's hormonal. That makes no sense whatsoever. What regulates your hormones? Waiting. It just makes no sense, right? So again, how do your hormones regulate your immune system? That doesn't make sense. Is that a separately regulated system? That doesn't make sense. So we've advanced the science since high school, let's say, and we figured out some things. Although we're not teaching about it in high school yet, but eventually we will. So again, let's go through these 3 main points on the endocannabinoid system real quick so we're all on the same page. Point 1 about it, it's very old. We developed it in something called a sea squirt. We had a mouth, a stomach, an exoskeleton, a few other things that we'll talk about in a second, and a tail so we could kind of move around the bottom of the ocean. From that guy, we diverged from insects, so a pretty important common ancestor. And again, that should tell everyone how important the endocannabinoid system is. It goes all the way back to before we walked out of the ocean, before we developed lungs, gills, feet, legs, skin, most everything, right? We were a stick bug that swam around on the bottom of the ocean. So point 1, very old, very ancient, very common, should tell us all very important. Point 2, it's looking to be our master regulatory system. Satisfy yourself to the amount of research, endocannabinoid and whatever on NIH.gov. Immune is a good one. There's hundreds of thousands of studies. Cognitive is a good one. There's hundreds of thousands of studies. Cancer obviously is a good one. There's tens of thousands of studies. There's thousands of studies on most common dysregulations that all point to the endocannabinoid system and would all indicate that dysregulations and regulation are both caused and seen by the endocannabinoid system. So what I'm saying is it regulates down every silo in your body, and it's looking to be our master regulatory system. What does that mean in practicality? That means we work like our car, computer, always looking at every system, trying to balance our oil pressure, windshield wiper fluid, gas, piston pressure, all of these things to perfect balance and perfect homeostasis so your car lasts the longest. We work in a very similar way. Hypothalamus hippocampus uses the endocannabinoid system to try to balance us to perfect homeostasis. It just needs, point 3, resources, okay? So it just needs resources to do this. So point 1, very old, very ancient. Point 2, looking to be our master regulatory system. Point 3, it's a resource-driven system, so we have to provide resources to the endocannabinoid to get it to do things, okay? And that's everyone. That's not just you and me. That's Kyle the dog. That's Knickers the cat. That's Whoopi the parrot. That's Frisky the lizard. All of these things have to feed this endocannabinoid system with resources from their diet, okay? All of you guys should be going, wow, it's really interesting. I wonder, where's he going with that? He's going to take his phone out of his pocket. That's for darn sure, because it just rang. Okay. All right. So let's go back to this C-squirt guy, okay? And I want to kind of talk you through this a little bit. So what I'm going to propose to you is that we have a more basic and ancient system even than our endocannabinoid system, okay? And there's some reasons why we should think this, and we'll dive into those reasons a little bit, but why we should kind of consider that there might be a higher level up above this endocannabinoid system. And again, if that's true, that's very important because that tells us a lot about how we should nourish and provide these resources to our master regulatory system, right? So let's call this endocannabinoid system our master regulatory system, and let's call this thing above it its nourishment layer, okay? So if there was a nourishment layer, if there was something providing resources to the endocannabinoid system, again, we're going to have to feed this thing. We're going to have to understand this thing, and we want to understand it really well so we can feed our master regulatory system so we don't break like we're breaking right now. Everybody's breaking. So as we understand this, again, it will help us provide resources, windshield wiper fluid, oil, gas, you know, all the things that we need to run our vehicle. It will help us understand how to provide those things, where and what format to provide those things in. So pretty important that we kind of figure this out, pretty important to your kids' health and also Lepers the frog's health, right? So need to figure this out. So we have something called, and we'll approach this a little different way. So if there is this sort of resource feeding layer above the endocannabinoid system, we would have had to have had it in a C-squirt, right? Because we developed the endocannabinoid system in a C-squirt. So if we had this sort of upper system, it would have had to have developed in this guy, in this C-squirt guy, or before, right? So that's very important. And this is, you know, science, right? So again, we're postulating that potentially we have this additional layer. If we did have this additional layer, it would have had to have existed in every single beast, animal, thing on the planet that had an endocannabinoid system, right? So it would have had to have been in the C-squirt. So let's just put that down as something that we're going to have to check on later, all right? So let's just make some observations about the endocannabinoid system. So we share this system with most life on the planet, pretty much everything but insects. Let me give you something that's really interesting. So again, somebody wants to dig this out, that you'll be the first in the world to do this dig. No one's done this, okay? But I'll give you some data. So again, we share this endocannabinoid system with most life on the planet. The things that don't have an endocannabinoid system are insects, okay? But insects that bite us or interface with us will have an endocannabinoid system in their mouth. So isn't that kind of interesting? So let me ask you this. When a tick bites you, again, a tick will have a rudimentary endocannabinoid system in its mouth. Why don't you have an immune response when a tick bites you? Again, it's attaching parasitically to you. It needs to really not tell you that it's there, right? So again, it needs to just benignly sit there. Certainly if you had an infection or an immune response, that would cue your body that something has attacked it, right? That doesn't happen when you have it happens sometimes when you pull it off, right? Then you have an immune response, then you inflame and all that. Isn't that interesting, right? Tick has an endocannabinoid system in its mouth. Is the reason why it has that endocannabinoid system in its mouth is to interface with us and not cue our immune system that we're being attacked. So worth a dig, worth a dig. And you know, again, just these observational things from nature are so important to advancing science. Science advanced through the last 3,000 years by observation only. We've only had labs, you know, in the last 50 years, right? Or 100 or 200 years, whatever. Not, you know, less than 10% of the advancement of science has been done in the lab, you know. And most science advancement, frankly, was done, you know, well before we had labs. It's done through observation. It's done through watching things, making suppositions and postulations. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we have this situation where we share the endocannabinoid system with most life on the planet. Most life on the planet are not apex predators like we are. So they don't have the benefit of being able to have a mind to engineer a supplement to be able to provide resources to the endocannabinoid system. They don't have the benefit of being able to research medical cannabis and provide a supplement into the endocannabinoid system. They can't, they're not like us. They can't engineer a solution. They can't provide supplements to this system. And we don't even know that we're doing this. Super beets and blueberries and turmeric and all that. Guess what we're doing? We're just providing resources to the endocannabinoid system. But a bear can't do that, right? A deer can't do that. A frog can't do that. Your fish can't do that. They can't engineer or supplement for the endocannabinoid system. So natively in nature, there must be a way for them to take in nutrients to feed this system that doesn't have to do with their intelligence, okay? Or their place in the food chain. They have to be able to do this in a natural, native way, right? We all do, okay? Or it just doesn't work, okay? So it's quite clear that the endocannabinoid system is critical to health and it's resource dependent. And again, you can satisfy yourself to everything that I'm saying. There's plenty of research out there. It's not like my 1, 2, 3s or any big revelation. There's plenty of data out there to support all that. I'm just kind of putting it together in a different way. But it's very obvious that the endocannabinoid system is critical. Again, don't give it resources and see what happens, right? So everyone crashes and burns, and that it's resource dependent, okay? So if we haven't proved that to you guys yet, then I'm not doing my job. So, but it is critical and it's resource dependent. So it's also looking to be, in mammals, certainly the master regulatory system. And again, that's point 2 in the whole talk. So you guys have heard that enough. But it's still unclear, and there's just, you know, you think about this as the everything field of research. It's still unclear whether it's the master regulatory system in a fish. It certainly is a big major system in a fish, and it certainly plays in the regulatory scheme, and I think we all assume that it is, but there's not that study yet, right? So again, there's still a lot to be learned here, but with mammals, there's no question that this is a high regulatory system and probably the master regulatory system in mammals, okay? Most animals that we deal with that are eating processed foods right now are having health issues, okay? So our dogs, our cats, our horses, you know, our food sources, our chickens, our pigs, and our cows are getting sick, right, from food sources, processed food, in a similar way that we are. So, you know, if you broke them along resources, if you broke their endocannabinoid system, which appears to be what's happening, you know, they would suffer symptoms very similar to what they have. So this processed food thing is not a good thing. And again, that's really kind of where I'm going with this talk, but really what's the proper way to feed these resources that feed the endocannabinoid system? So again, most animals that eat processed food, including us, are having health issues right now. And those health issues appear to be dysregulations in the endocannabinoid system. So again, they're general, right? So they're kind of all over the map. But they all are regulation related. So you might be suffering from diabetes because of not getting enough resources, and I might be suffering from pain management or from cognitive decline because I'm not getting enough resources. And that depends on genetics and a lot of other things. But again, you can't run your body without resources. That's the big thing. And those resources come from food. And clearly they have to come from natural foods because all of these things in nature are feeding this system every day, and they don't have access or the intelligence to be able to supplement for the system. So again, it appears that most life on the planet is able to provide resources to the endocannabinoid system from nature, right? Not from supplements, not from cannabis, not from pressure beds, not from temperature, from nature. The mechanism of how these resources are provided is poorly understood currently. That's a slight minimal statement. It, you know, again, in science, you would hope that we begin to understand how we work, and we're not even there yet. So poorly understood is probably a kind way to describe the current state of things, but not well understood, let's just say that. But again, we hope that what I'm saying today, again, I want to really lay down some new information, I hope, and give a new area of focus, let's say. So what's a PPAR? What is a PPAR, and when did we develop one? So it turns out that we have, and again, I kind of touched on this last week in the diving deep on the endocannabinoid system. I'm sorry, that was kind of an eye glazer. It was pretty detailed and science oriented. And the endocannabinoid system is a pharmacological system. It's a neurological system. So it's very hard to talk about it or describe it without getting into very advanced science topics. So we kind of got to go there, and we kind of got to go there again with PPAR, but this really isn't that hard to understand. Again, you wouldn't learn about it until you're advanced microbiology, but it's not that hard to understand. Okay. So again, if the PPAR is part of this resource providing layer that sits above the endocannabinoid system, then we would have had to have developed PPARs at the same time or before we developed an endocannabinoid system. Now, again, you got to go way back to when we developed an endocannabinoid system. So it would be unusual to find something in the human body that we developed at the same time or before that, frankly, other than a mouth and a stomach and a spinal cord. So we're getting down to the basics, friends, is what I'm telling you. So the fact that we developed a PPAR or had a PPAR in a C-squirt, as I'm highlighting here on this slide, is very telling. So that means that at least at the same time we developed an endocannabinoid system, if not before, we had this PPAR system in place. So that begs some questions. What is a PPAR? What does this guy do? How is it related to the endocannabinoid system? What the heck? And is it useful, right? So is this useful information, or is it just, gee, you know, science trip, right? So this is useful information, trust me. So, you know, again, what's a PPAR and when did we develop one? This is just from Wikipedia. So let me read you this statement, and then let's talk about it a little bit. In the field of molecular biology, I don't know how to say it, Peroxisome proliferator activated receptors. PPARs is easier. I'll just use that. PPARs are a group of nuclear receptor proteins, so G-coupled proteins that function as transcription factors, regulating the expression of genes. Is that important? Is that basic to your function? What genes you express? You express genes. Genes help you express enzymes. Enzymes are what determine how you break down things in your body to build mediators that run us. Okay? Very basic, but very freaking important. PPARs play essential roles in the regulation of cellular differentiation. I'm a mast cell, I'm a stem cell, I'm a nerve cell, I'm a blood cell, I'm a bone cell. Pretty basic. Pretty basic. Development of cells, metabolism, how hot you're running, how cold you're running, how fast is your body working, how hard is your body working, carbohydrates, lipid and protein expression, and tumorigenesis of higher organisms like us, right? So tumorigenesis is obviously how we control tumors in our body. Okay, this guy's pretty important, all right? Interestingly, what feeds him, I don't know that I really, hold on a second. Yeah, we don't really talk about that, so we'll kind of back up here. You can see on this slide that down here, fatty acids, right? So you've heard potentially me talk before, and you've heard me talk about the endocannabinoid system, and I talk about what are the resources that we need to feed the endocannabinoid system. And it's obvious that they're omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, which is kind of cool because those are the only two things that your body can't make, right? So isn't that very cool and godly? It's, you know, our master regulatory system is fed by the only two things that our body can't make. And so, you know, that's intelligent design 101 right there. So sorry if that blows up anybody's paradigm, but it's, you know, we function very logically and in a very elegant and almost designed way, or completely designed ways, I should say. Omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, we have to have in perfect balance, all right? Why? I can tell you what happens if we don't have them in perfect balance, so I can tell you the consequence, but the why is still unknown. But guess what feeds PPARs? Fatty acids. And omega-3s appear to play a critical role in how we regulate PPARs. And again, how we regulate, which would mean that omega-3s play a role in gene expression, kind of the not necessarily the, I would say the plugs. We kind of have we need two mechanisms, right, to kind of function. We need neuroreceptor sites and neurotransmitters. And so one side of this appears to play on the neurotransmitter side and the other on the neuroreceptor side, I guess, for the best way to explain that. And the O3s are really on the receptor site side. And again, they appear to have a lot to do with PPARs. So, and if there was smoke here, again, we would have a lot of crossover with the endocannabinoid system, right? So there would be a lot of interplay between PPARs, omega fatty acids, and the endocannabinoid system. So do we have that? Absolutely, we do have that. Again, and you guys can look up any of these studies if you want to read more about this. There's a lot on PPARs. It is a pretty advanced, I would say, concept. But guess what? Endocannabinoids and cannabinoids, external from cannabis, activate PPARs. Okay, so isn't that interesting? And are they, you know, a part of the endocannabinoid system? You know, I don't know, but they're certainly connected to the endocannabinoid system. They sit higher in function as to how we pull in resources, but not necessarily how we're monitoring and kind of regulating our body. So again, if we have the proper resources and proper balance, and that appears to be provided at this PPAR, and there's another side of this that I'll talk about next week called FFAR, but appears to be fed to this PPAR FFAR layer, and then it in turn kind of determines and then builds the resources that we need to feed the endocannabinoid, okay? But if we don't understand this top layer and kind of how to feed this top layer, then we will stay forever broken like we are. By the way, don't ever let any physician tell you that you're broken, okay? Like I just said, that's not true generally, all right? So some people definitely, you know, can be broken, but that's generally genetic or trauma. For the most part, most things that are wrong with us, and these could be very severe Parkinson's, or, you know, I'm not sure on Parkinson's or dementia or Alzheimer's, but again, those things could merely be a resource deprivation in how we're running our minds and our cognitive, okay? So things like that that are, look, autism, again, you've heard me talk about autism. That's a very severe, you know, thing, a very severe dysregulation, but it could be easily addressed by providing resources to the endocannabinoid system. And again, we look like we're onto some things there, which is very exciting. But I'm not talking just about one thing. I'm talking about everything. Again, we we don't want to drive a hoopty anymore, do we? We want to drive that beautiful, modern, futuristic vehicle, you know, that'll take us 150 to 300 years down the road. And that's not what we're doing right now because we don't yet understand these concepts. So again, if you have questions, please ask them now. Feel free, and I'm sure that the folks that are watching will come over and bring the questions over. If not, then feel free to leave questions in the thread. I'll be watching, and I'll answer any of those questions that need to. This will also be up on YouTube and all of that. We really want to provide a lot of information and education about the endocannabinoid system. New Pharma is really, in a lot of ways, leading this science. And so we want to let you guys know what we know and really kind of establish a track record and be the experts here on the endocannabinoid system. So we'll leave it there for today. And again, if you guys have questions, feel free to ask and ask in the thread. So we'll see you guys next week.